A farmer in ancient China had a horse that ran away. His neighbors came to console him, saying, "Such bad luck." But the farmer simply replied, "Maybe." A few days later, the horse returned, bringing with it a group of wild horses. The neighbors rejoiced, saying, "How fortunate." The farmer again said, "Maybe." Later, the farmer's son tried to ride one of the wild horses and broke his leg. The neighbors lamented, "How terrible." The farmer remained calm, saying, "Maybe." Soon after, soldiers came to the village, conscripting all able-bodied young men for war. The farmer's son, because of his injury, was spared. The neighbors told him, "What great luck." And yet again, the farmer said, "Maybe." This simple story reflects the essence of Wu Wei, the Taoist principle of effortless action. Wu Wei doesn't mean doing nothing, but rather acting in harmony with the natural flow of life. It is about moving with the current instead of fighting against it, trusting that things unfold as they should. Wu Wei in modern life, flowing with ease. In today's fast-paced world, we are constantly told to work harder, push more, and struggle against obstacles. But what if the key to success and peace isn't in force, but in alignment? 1. Reducing stress, the art of letting go. Think of a person caught in a rip current at the beach. Their instinct is to fight the tide and swim directly back to shore, exhausting themselves in the process. But lifeguards advise a different approach. Float, move with the current, and let it carry you to safety. This is Wu Wei. When we stop resisting, we often find an easier path forward. In daily life, stress comes when we resist reality, a delayed flight, a traffic jam, an unexpected change at work. Instead of fighting against it, try taking a deep breath and flowing with what is. Often, a solution will appear naturally when you stop forcing it. 2. Productivity, doing more by doing less. Lao Tzu wrote in the Tao Te Ching, "The master does nothing, yet nothing is left undone." This doesn't mean sitting idly. It means acting with effortless efficiency. Think of an athlete in the zone or an artist completely absorbed in their craft. They don't force their actions. They allow them to emerge naturally. Rather than overplanning and overworking, cultivate flow. Prioritize what truly matters instead of trying to do everything. Eliminate resistance by enjoying the process instead of forcing results. Trust your instincts rather than micromanaging every step. Steve Jobs famously embraced this idea, wearing the same outfit daily to avoid decision fatigue. By removing unnecessary struggles, we allow energy to be used where it truly counts. 3. Finding inner peace, the balance of yin and yang. Taoism teaches that life is a balance of opposites: yin, passive receptive, and yang, active, forceful. Wu Wei is the harmony between these forces, knowing when to act and when to yield. If you constantly push, you burn out. If you only wait, nothing happens. The secret is timing, just as a skilled archer releases the arrow at the perfect moment. Instead of forcing happiness, allow joy to arise naturally. Instead of chasing success, position yourself in the right flow and let it come to you. This doesn't mean passivity, but trusting that things unfold when they are meant to. Final thought. Be like water. Lao Tzu said, "Water is soft and yielding, yet it overcomes the hard and strong." Water flows around obstacles rather than crashing against them. It takes the shape of whatever contains it, yet over time, it carves through mountains. This is the power of Wu Wei: effortless strength, adaptability, and trust in the natural way of things. Next time you find yourself struggling, pause. Instead of pushing harder, ask yourself how you can flow around the obstacle. You may find that the easiest path is also the most effective. The trap of over-efforting, when pushing too hard, backfires. A man once lived by a river and dreamed of crossing to the other side. He built a raft and paddled with all his strength against the current. No matter how hard he rowed, the river pushed him back. Exhausted and frustrated, he finally stopped fighting. At that moment, he noticed the river had a natural bend. If he simply let the current guide him, he could reach his destination effortlessly. This is the essence of Wu Wei, the Taoist principle of effortless action. When we push too hard, we often create unnecessary resistance. But when we align ourselves with the natural flow, things fall into place. In modern life, we are conditioned to believe that more effort equals more success. We grind at work, strive in relationships, and push ourselves in personal growth. Yet, paradoxically, the harder we try, the more we struggle. Lao Tzu warns against this in the Tao Te Ching. He who stands on tiptoe is not steady. He who rushes ahead does not go far. Burnout, stress, and frustration often stem from resisting the natural rhythm of life. Let's explore how we can embrace the art of not trying in different aspects of life. Sign 1. Work. Productivity without struggle. Imagine two employees. One stays late every night, obsessing over every detail, micromanaging, and overextending themselves. The other focuses on key tasks, works with ease, and takes breaks when needed. Surprisingly, the second employee achieves more with less effort. This is the power of Wu Wei at work. Stop forcing creativity. Great ideas often come when the mind is relaxed, not under pressure. Allow solutions to emerge. Instead of overanalyzing, step back and let insights unfold naturally. Recognize the law of diminishing returns. Working longer doesn't always mean working better. Like a skilled archer, true effectiveness comes from a calm mind and a steady hand, not frantic overexertion. Practical tip: try the 80-20 rule. Focus on the 20% of tasks that bring 80% of results. Take breaks and allow moments of stillness. Your mind is most productive when it's not forced. 2. Relationships. Letting go of control. In an old Taoist story, a man loved a butterfly so much that he grabbed it and held it tightly, fearing it would fly away. In his effort to keep it, he crushed its delicate wings. Relationships thrive through control and over-effort, but through trust and space. Common signs of over-efforting in relationships: constantly seeking validation or over-explaining yourself, trying to fix others instead of accepting them as they are, forcing a relationship to work rather than letting it evolve naturally. Lao Tzu says, when you let go of what you are, you become what you might be. Instead of grasping tightly, be like water, adaptable, patient, and flowing. Practical tip: listen more, control less. A great conversation is like a river. It moves naturally, not forced. Give space in relationships. Like a garden, love grows best with air, light, and time. 3. Personal growth. Stop chasing this, start becoming. A student once asked a Taoist master how to attain wisdom. The master led him to a pond and told him to stir the water with a stick. The surface became cloudy. Then the master said, "Now stop." As the student watched, the water slowly cleared, revealing his reflection. Like the still water, clarity comes when we stop striving and allow things to settle. Personal growth is not about forcefully changing yourself, but about removing what blocks your natural self from emerging. Signs you are over-efforting in self-improvement. Obsessing over self-help books without applying anything. Comparing your journey to others and feeling behind. Forcing discipline to the point of exhaustion instead of enjoying the process. Practical tip: instead of chasing happiness, focus on removing what makes you unhappy. Let things unfold. Growth happens naturally when you stop resisting the present. Final thought: the bamboo and the oak. In a fierce storm, the mighty oak tree resists the wind, standing firm until its branches snap. But the bamboo bends, sways, and ultimately survives. Wu Wei teaches us to be like the bamboo, flexible, yielding, yet strong. By embracing the art of not trying, we reduce frustration, increase productivity, and cultivate more fulfilling relationships. Instead of forcing life to bend to our will, we can flow with it. Effortless, yet powerful. Taoism versus hustle culture: why less effort can mean more success. In today's world, we are constantly told to grind, push, and hustle. Wake up at 5 a.m., maximize productivity, never stop working. The modern hustle culture glorifies exhaustion as a badge of honor, making us believe that the more effort we exert, the more successful we'll become. But what if the opposite were true? What if true success comes not from pushing harder, but from flowing with ease? Taoism, an ancient Chinese philosophy rooted in harmony with nature, offers a different perspective. Through the principle of Wu Wei, effortless action, Lao Tzu teaches that success is not about force, but about alignment. By working with the natural flow of life rather than against it, we can achieve more with less stress, less burnout, and greater fulfillment. Let's explore how Taoist wisdom can help us break free from the toxic cycle of hustle culture and find success without sacrificing our well-being. 1. The river versus the machine. Two ways to approach success. Hustle culture treats life like a machine. The more effort we put in, the more we produce. It tells us to sacrifice rest, work harder, and never slow down. But machines break when overworked, and so do people. Taoism, on the other hand, views life as a river. Instead of forcing your way upstream, why not flow with the current? When you stop resisting, the river naturally carries you forward. Lao Tzu says in the Tao Te Ching, when nothing is done, nothing is left undone. This doesn't mean laziness. It means acting in harmony with the situation, rather than using brute force. Practical application. Instead of forcing productivity through constant effort, work during your natural peak energy times and take breaks when needed. Let go of over-planning and perfectionism. Sometimes stepping back allows solutions to emerge naturally. Recognize that success is not a straight path. Like water, adaptability is key. 2. The archer's paradox. Why forcing success backfires. Imagine an archer aiming at a target. If he strains too hard, grips the bow too tightly, and overthinks the shot, his arrow wobbles and misses. But when he relaxes, trusts his training, and lets the arrow fly naturally, he hits the mark effortlessly. This is Wu Wei in action. Success comes not from forcing, but from flowing. Hustle culture tells us, work harder or you'll fail. Taoism teaches, relax, align with your strengths, and let success unfold. Practical application. If you're facing creative blocks, step away instead of forcing ideas. Insights often come when you're relaxed. If you're stuck in overwork mode, trust that taking a break can actually improve long-term productivity. If you're feeling stressed about goals, loosen your grip. Sometimes opportunities appear when you stop chasing them. 3. Yin and yang, the balance between action and rest. Hustle culture worships yang energy, action, ambition, force. But Taoism reminds us that yin, rest, reflection, stillness, is just as important. A tree does not grow taller by constantly stretching upward. It grows because it absorbs sunlight, yang, and rests in the darkness, yin. True success requires both movement and stillness. Lao Tzu puts it beautifully, to the mind that is still, the whole universe surrenders. Practical application. Prioritize deep rest as much as deep work. Burnout doesn't lead to success. Recovery fuels creativity and energy. Build white space into your day. Moments of stillness allow clarity and insight to emerge naturally. Embrace seasons of life. There's a time to push forward and a time to slow down. 4. The farmer's wisdom. Why we don't always need to control everything. A Taoist parable tells of a farmer whose horse ran away. His neighbor said, "Such bad luck." The farmer replied, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returned with wild horses. The neighbor said, "How fortunate." Again, the farmer said, "Maybe." Later, the farmer's son broke his leg while riding a wild horse. The neighbors pitied him. The farmer responded, "Maybe." Then soldiers came to the village, drafting young men for war. Because of his broken leg, the farmer's son was spared. This story teaches a powerful lesson. We don't always need to control every outcome. What seems like failure may lead to success. What seems like a setback may be a hidden blessing. Hustle culture tells us to force success now. Taoism teaches us to trust the unfolding of events. Practical application. Don't panic over short-term failures. They may lead to unexpected opportunities. Instead of obsessively controlling every detail, trust that things will unfold as they should. Stay open to the unexpected. Sometimes the best outcomes come from detours, not rigid. The Taoist Guide to Letting Go. How to stop controlling everything. A man once tried to grasp a handful of water. The harder he clenched his fist, the more the water slipped through his fingers. But when he opened his palm, the water rested there effortlessly. This is the paradox of control. The more we try to force things, the more they resist us. Taoism teaches that life, like a river, flows best when left to move naturally. But modern life tempts us to control everything. Our careers, relationships, emotions, even the future itself. We cling tightly, believing that effort equals security. Yet often the very act of control creates stress, anxiety, and frustration. Lao Tzu reminds us, by letting it go, it all gets done. The world is won by those who let it go. But when you try and try, the world is beyond winning. Through Wu Wei, effortless action, and an understanding of yin and yang, Taoism offers a different path, one that leads to peace, flow, and a deeper trust in life. 1. The oak and the bamboo. Why flexibility is stronger than force. In a fierce storm, the mighty oak tree stands firm against the wind, resisting with all its strength. But the wind is relentless, and eventually the tree cracks and falls. Nearby, a bamboo grove sways and bends with the wind. It does not resist. It moves with the force of nature, allowing itself to yield without breaking. When the storm passes, the bamboo remains standing. This is the lesson of Wu Wei. True strength is found in flexibility, not force. Practical application. In relationships, trying to control people, expecting them to act a certain way, or demanding perfection often leads to disappointment. Instead, embrace their nature, like bamboo bending with the wind. At work, instead of forcing success through stress and overwork, align with your natural strengths and trust that opportunities will come when you move with ease. In daily life, plans don't always go as expected. Instead of frustration, adopt the Taoist mindset. Flow with change rather than resist it. 2. The farmer's wisdom, the illusion of good and bad. A Taoist parable tells of a wise farmer whose horse ran away. His neighbor said, "Such bad luck." The farmer simply replied, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returned with a group of wild horses. "How fortunate," the neighbors exclaimed. Again, the farmer said, "Maybe." Later, his son broke his leg while trying to tame one of the wild horses. "Such terrible misfortune," said the neighbors. The farmer replied, "Maybe." Soon after, soldiers arrived in the village, drafting all able-bodied young men for war. Because of his injury, the farmer's son was spared. This story teaches us a profound lesson. We don't always see the bigger picture. What seems like a loss today may be a gain tomorrow. When we try to control everything, we operate under the illusion that we know what's best. But the Tao teaches us to let go, trust life's unfolding, and accept that we may not always understand events in the moment. Practical application. Stop labeling everything as good or bad. Sometimes, challenges are hidden opportunities. Let go of needing to control outcomes. We cannot predict the future, but we can trust that things will work out in their own way. Practice patience. Life has its own rhythm. When we stop forcing things, we make space for the unexpected blessings to emerge. 3. The flowing river. Effortless action over struggle. Imagine two people crossing a river. One fights against the current, exhausting themselves in the process. The other flows with the river, using its natural currents to guide their movement. They reach the other side with ease. This is the essence of Wu Wei, not passivity, but action in harmony with nature. Lao Tzu says, "The softest thing in the world overcomes the hardest thing in the world." Trying to control every aspect of life is like swimming upstream. It creates unnecessary struggle. Instead, letting go allows us to move with the natural flow of events. Practical application. If a door doesn't open, stop forcing it. Redirect your energy to what is naturally unfolding. Follow ease, not resistance. If something feels forced, it may not be the right path. Trust the process. When you align with the rhythm of life, success and opportunities come effortlessly. 4. Yin and yang, balancing effort with surrender. We are taught to push, strive, and control. This is the energy of yang, action, force, ambition. But Taoism teaches that yin, receptivity, stillness, surrender is equally important. Consider breathing. You cannot only inhale, you must also exhale. One cannot exist without the other. If we live only in yang, constantly controlling and forcing, we become stressed and burnt out. But if we integrate yin, allowing rest, flow, and surrender, we create harmony. Lao Tzu reminds us, do you have the patience to wait until your mud settles and the water is clear? Practical application. Practice letting things be. If something isn't working, instead of pushing harder, take a step back and observe. Trust stillness. Some of the best ideas, opportunities, and insights come when we stop chasing and allow things to come to us. Balance ambition with acceptance. It's okay to have goals, but hold them loosely. Success often happens when we least expect it. 5. The open hand, releasing attachment to control. A Taoist master once held out his hand and said, "Clench your fist as tightly as possible." The student obeyed, his hand shaking from effort. "Now," said the master, "release." The student let go. Instantly, the tension disappeared. This is the lesson of surrender. When we let go, we find peace. Control is an illusion. The more we try to grip life, the more we suffer. But when we release our attachment to outcomes, trust in the unfolding of events, and move with the flow, we find true freedom. Living the Tao, simple ways to apply Taoist wisdom in daily life. Taoist philosophy isn't just for monks on mountaintops. It's a way of life that helps us navigate the modern world with more ease, less stress, and a deeper sense of balance. By incorporating Wu Wei, effortless action, yin and yang, balance, and the natural flow of life, we can transform even the most ordinary moments into sources of wisdom and peace. Lao Tzu reminds us, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The Tao isn't something to be mastered overnight. It's about small, simple shifts in how we approach life. Let's explore some everyday ways to live in harmony with the Tao. 1. Flowing with traffic. Wu Wei in motion. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, horns blaring, frustration rising. You could fight against reality, huffing, checking the time every few seconds, clenching the steering wheel. Or you could flow with it. Lao Tzu teaches, nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. The traffic is like a river. It moves at its own pace. You can't force it to go faster, but you can adjust your mindset. Instead of resisting, take a breath. Listen to music, a podcast, or simply observe the world around you. When you stop fighting what you can't change, stress melts away. Actionable Taoist practice. Next time you're in traffic or a long line, accept the moment instead of resisting it. Use the time to practice deep breathing or mindfulness instead of getting frustrated. Recognize that delays are part of life's rhythm. Rushing doesn't make the traffic disappear. 2. The art of not overthinking, letting go of the need to know. We crave certainty. We want to know what will happen next. Will we succeed? Will things go as planned? But life is unpredictable, and trying to control everything creates anxiety. A Taoist parable tells of a man who kept trying to predict the weather. He watched the sky, worried about storms, and planned his days around his forecasts. Yet, despite all his effort, the weather changed unpredictably. One day, he met a Taoist master who simply looked at the sky and said, "If it rains, let it rain." Embracing uncertainty doesn't mean giving up. It means trusting that you can handle whatever comes. Actionable Taoist practice. When faced with uncertainty, remind yourself, if it rains, let it rain. Instead of overplanning every detail, take things one step at a time and adjust as needed. Let go of the idea that you must have all the answers. Sometimes, clarity comes only when we stop searching. 3. Finding joy in simplicity. The power of less. Hustle culture tells us to want more, do more, have more. But Taoism teaches the opposite. True happiness comes from simplicity. Lao Tzu says, "He who knows he has enough is rich." Consider a bowl of warm soup on a cold day, the laughter of a friend, or the feel of the sun on your face. These small moments hold more joy than any expensive possession. Actionable Taoist practice. Declutter, not just your space, but your mind and schedule. Let go of what doesn't truly bring you peace. Practice gratitude for simple pleasures rather than chasing more. Take time each day to pause and appreciate the small unnoticed moments, the sound of rain, the taste of tea, the feeling of stillness. 4. Moving like water, adapting to life's changes. Bruce Lee, inspired by Taoist philosophy, famously said, "Be like water." Water flows around obstacles rather than resisting them. If poured into a cup, it becomes the cup. If faced with a rock, it moves around it. It doesn't complain, it adapts. Life is unpredictable. Plans change, relationships shift, unexpected challenges arise. The Tao teaches us that resistance creates suffering, while adaptability brings peace. Actionable Taoist practice. Next time something doesn't go as planned, ask yourself, how can I adapt instead of resist? Instead of clinging to rigid expectations, practice flexibility. Flow around the obstacle instead of fighting it. When faced with change, remind yourself, water does not resist, yet it shapes the strongest stones. 5. Doing less to achieve more, the wisdom of effortless action. Wu Wei doesn't mean doing nothing. It means acting in alignment with the natural flow instead of forcing things. Picture a gardener tending to a plant. If he overwaters, overfertilizes, and constantly pulls at the leaves, the plant suffers. But if he gives it what it needs and allows it to grow naturally, it flourishes. The same applies to work, relationships, and personal goals. When we try too hard, we create resistance. When we act with ease, things unfold naturally. Actionable Taoist practice. Instead of forcing productivity, identify when you work best and go with your natural rhythms. Let go of micromanaging. Trust that some things work best when left to develop on their own. Recognize when you're over-efforting. If something feels too forced, step back and reassess. 6. The power of silence, creating space for insight. Lao Tzu writes, "Silence is a source of great strength. In a world full of noise, we rarely stop to just be. But silence creates space for wisdom to emerge. Think of a muddy pond. If you keep stirring the water, it remains cloudy. But if you let it sit, the mud settles and clarity appears. Our minds work the same way." Actionable Taoist practice. Spend a few minutes in silence each day. No phone, no distractions, just stillness. When making decisions, pause instead of reacting immediately. Insights often arise in moments of quiet. Use silence as a tool in conversations. Sometimes the deepest understanding comes from listening, not speaking. By making small shifts, flowing instead of forcing, embracing uncertainty, finding joy in simplicity, and trusting life's natural unfolding, we move closer to living in harmony with the Tao. The mental shift to Wu Wei, letting go of perfectionism, anxiety, and overthinking. In a world that glorifies control, effort, and endless striving, the idea of Wu Wei, effortless action, can feel counterintuitive. We're taught that success comes from pushing harder, thinking more, and perfecting every detail. But Taoism suggests a different path, letting go, trusting the flow, and acting in harmony with the natural rhythm of life. Lao Tzu writes in the Tao Te Ching, "When nothing is done, nothing is left undone." This is the paradox of Wu Wei. It doesn't mean laziness or passivity. It means acting without over-effort, flowing instead of forcing, and letting things unfold naturally. But before we can embody Wu Wei, we must first shift our mindset. 1. Overcoming perfectionism, the strength of imperfection. Perfectionism is the enemy of peace. It whispers that nothing is ever good enough, that we must fix, control, and refine everything before we can be satisfied. But Taoism teaches us that nature itself is not perfect, and yet it is whole and complete. Lao Tzu tells us, "The sage does not try to be great, and thus becomes great." Consider a tree. Its branches may twist, its bark may be rough, but it does not strive to be perfect. It simply grows as it is meant to grow. If we judged a tree by human standards of perfection, we would miss its natural beauty. The same applies to our own work, relationships, and personal growth. Taoist practice for letting go of perfectionism. Observe nature. A river does not flow in a straight line, and yet it reaches the ocean effortlessly. Let this be a reminder that progress does not have to be perfect. Set a good enough rule. Instead of obsessing over minor details, ask, is this functional and meaningful? Embrace mistakes as part of the process. Like ink spreading on paper, sometimes beauty arises from unexpected imperfections. 2. Easing anxiety, the art of trusting the flow. Anxiety comes from clutching too tightly to control. We worry about what might happen, replay past mistakes, and fear the unknown. But Taoism teaches that life is self-organizing. Just as rivers find their course and seasons change without force, life unfolds as it should. Lao Tzu writes, "Do you have the patience to wait until your mud settles and the water is clear?" Imagine holding a jar of muddy water. If you shake it, the mud swirls chaotically. But if you set it down and wait, the sediment settles and the water becomes clear. Anxiety is like that muddy jar. When we overthink, we stir up confusion. But when we pause, breathe, and trust, clarity emerges naturally. Taoist practice for reducing anxiety. Practice mental stillness. Instead of reacting to every worry, Visualize your thoughts settling like mud in water. Let go of the illusion of control. Remind yourself, I cannot control the wind, but I can adjust my sail. Use nature as a guide. Just as waves rise and fall, life has cycles. Trust that uncertainty is not chaos, it's flow. 3. Releasing overthinking, the power of simplicity. Taoism teaches that the mind, when overused, becomes an obstacle. Too much thinking creates mental knots. It disconnects us from intuition, keeps us stuck in loops, and prevents natural action. Lao Tzu warns, stop thinking and end your problems. This doesn't mean we should never think. It means we should trust simple wisdom over endless analysis. Imagine trying to untangle a knot by pulling it in all directions. It only tightens. But if you loosen your grip and approach it calmly, the knot unravels effortlessly. The same applies to life. Sometimes the best way forward isn't more thinking, it's less resistance. Taoist practice for overcoming overthinking. Pause before reacting. When faced with indecision, take a breath. Let the answer emerge naturally rather than forcing it. Limit mental clutter. Simplify your choices, reduce unnecessary worries, and focus on what is happening now, not what might happen later. Follow the one action more principle instead of analyzing every possible outcome. Ask, what is the next simple step I can take? Then do it. Shifting to Wu Wei requires unlearning forceful effort and embracing ease. Instead of chasing perfection, fearing uncertainty, or overthinking every decision, we learn to trust the natural rhythm of life. When we do this, things begin to flow, not because we made them happen, but because we finally allowed them to. Tash, Wu Wei and goal setting, the path of least resistance. Modern culture tells us that success comes from relentless effort, pushing, grinding, and forcing things into place. But Taoism offers a different approach, Wu Wei, or effortless action. It suggests that true success comes not from forcing things, but from aligning with the natural flow of life, much like a river finding its way to the sea. Lao Tzu writes in the Tao Te Ching, those who flow as life flows know they need no other force. Instead of chasing goals with stress and struggle, what if we allowed them to unfold with ease? What if success wasn't about fighting upstream, but moving with the current? Let's explore how Wu Wei can transform the way we set goals and pursue personal growth. 1. The bamboo in the storm, adapting without breaking. In a fierce storm, a rigid tree might snap under the pressure, while bamboo bends with the wind and remains standing. This is the essence of Wu Wei in goal setting. Rather than being so rigid that failure breaks us, we remain adaptable and open. A common mistake in personal development is clinging too tightly to a fixed plan, believing that there is only one correct way to achieve success. But the Tao teaches that life is fluid. The path you envision may not be the path that leads you to where you need to be. A Taoist story tells of an archer obsessed with hitting the perfect shot. He practiced day and night, growing more and more tense. The harder he tried, the worse his aim became. One day a master told him, hold the bow like you hold a butterfly, firmly but not so tight that you crush it. When the archer let go of his desperation, his shots became effortless and precise. Applying Wu Wei to goal setting. Set clear intentions, but remain flexible. If circumstances shift, adjust instead of resisting. Release attachment to rigid timelines. Success unfolds at its own pace, not always when we expect. Recognize when effort turns into struggle. Persistence is good, but forcing things only creates tension. 2. The river's path, finding success through flow. A river does not force its way forward. It follows the landscape, winding around obstacles rather than crashing against them. Yet, over time, it carves canyons, shapes mountains, and reaches the vastness of the ocean. Many of the most successful people in history achieved their goals not by fighting against life, but by working with its natural currents. A modern example of Wu Wei in success, J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, didn't achieve success through sheer force. She faced rejection after rejection, but instead of fighting against what she couldn't control, she let the process unfold. She focused on writing, not forcing fame or validation. The right opportunity arrived when it was meant to. Similarly, Steve Jobs often spoke about how he trusted life's unfolding, famously saying, "You can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backward." He followed his natural interests, calligraphy, design, technology, and they organically led to Apple's success. Applying Wu Wei to personal growth. Trust that the right opportunities will come if you are aligned with your purpose. Instead of forcing things, focus on what naturally energizes and excites you. Accept detours as part of the journey. Sometimes the unexpected path is the one meant for you. 3. The farmer's luck. Good or bad, who can say? A famous Taoist parable tells of a farmer whose horse ran away. His neighbors said, "How unfortunate." The farmer simply replied, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returned with several wild horses. The neighbors cheered, "How lucky." The farmer again said, "Maybe." Later, the farmer's son broke his leg while trying to tame one of the wild horses. The neighbors pitied him. "How terrible," the farmer said, "Maybe." Soon after, soldiers came to draft young men for war. Because the son was injured, he was spared. The neighbors rejoiced. "What great fortune." And again the farmer said, "Maybe." The lesson? What seems like failure might be a hidden success. What seems like success might carry unseen challenges. When we stop labeling every event as good or bad, we stop forcing meaning onto things and allow life to unfold naturally. Applying Wu Wei to setbacks. See obstacles as redirections, not failures. Trust that a delay or detour might be leading you to something better. Instead of labeling experiences as good or bad, stay open to what they can. Attach the science of flow, Taoism, mindfulness, and the brain. Taoist wisdom has long taught that going with the flow, rather than resisting life, leads to harmony, success, and inner peace. In modern terms, this aligns closely with psychological research on mindfulness, stress reduction, and optimal states of performance. Lao Tzu writes in the Tao Te Ching, "The softest thing in the world overcomes the hardest thing in the world." This simple truth is now supported by neuroscience. When we stop over-controlling, overthinking, and over-efforting, our brains actually perform better, leading to improved well-being, creativity, and decision-making. By blending Taoist philosophy with modern science, we can understand why Wu Wei, or effortless action, is not just a spiritual ideal, it's a practical, scientifically supported way to live. The neuroscience of Wu Wei. Why flow is the key to peak performance. Taoism encourages us to trust intuition, surrender unnecessary control, and act in harmony with the natural rhythm of life. Modern psychology calls this state flow, the effortless, focused immersion we experience when doing something we love. Psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who coined the term flow state, found that when people are deeply engaged in an activity, whether painting, playing music, or even coding, their brains shift into a relaxed yet highly focused state. What happens in the brain during flow? The prefrontal cortex, which controls self-doubt and overthinking, quiets down. This allows thoughts and actions to become fluid and intuitive. Dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins increase, reducing stress and improving focus. The brain enters an effortless action mode, which aligns perfectly with Wu Wei. How this connects to Taoism. Lao Tzu describes flow in simple terms. The wise man is one who knows what he does not know and lets things take their course. This echoes what modern science tells us. When we stop overthinking and allow ourselves to be fully present, we achieve our highest potential. Applying Wu Wei to daily life. Find activities where you naturally lose track of time. This is where flow lives. Limit distractions and overanalysis. Flow happens when the mind is clear. Follow what energizes you instead of forcing tasks that drain you. 2. Stress and overthinking. How letting go calms the mind. Stress is often the result of resisting what is, trying to force control over things we cannot change. Taoism teaches us that true peace comes not from controlling life, but from moving with it. Lao Tzu tells us, tension is who you think you should be. Relaxation is who you are. The science behind letting go. Chronic stress activates the amygdala, the brain's fear center, leading to anxiety and exhaustion. Mindfulness and acceptance lower cortisol, the stress hormone, calming the nervous system. Neuroscientists have found that mindfulness practices, rooted in Taoist principles, literally reshape the brain, increasing gray matter in areas associated with emotional regulation. Taoist story, the man who let the river carry him. A Taoist master once told a student to cross a river. The student fought against the current, exhausting himself. The master simply let the water carry him, floating effortlessly to the other side. Life is the same. The more we fight, the more we struggle. The more we let go, the easier the journey. Applying Wu Wei to reduce stress. Instead of forcing solutions, take a step back and observe. Often the answer arises naturally. Practice acceptance. Some things are meant to unfold in their own time. Breathe deeply and visualize yourself floating in a river, trusting the current to carry you. 3. Intuition and decision-making. The power of the unforced mind. Taoism values intuitive wisdom over rigid logic. While thinking is important, overthinking disconnects us from our natural instincts. Lao Tzu advises, stop trying to control. Let life unfold as it is meant to. Modern neuroscience supports this idea. Studies show that when people make intuitive decisions rather than agonizing over every detail, their choices are often more accurate and fulfilling. Why intuition works. The subconscious brain processes far more information than our conscious mind can handle. Decisions made in a relaxed state are often clearer and wiser than those made under stress. Overanalysis creates decision fatigue, making choices harder instead of easier. Taoist metaphor, the mirror and the still water. A pond disturbed by ripples cannot reflect clearly, but when the water is still, it becomes a perfect mirror. Similarly, Taoist wisdom for overthinkers, how to stop overcomplicating life. Overthinking is the modern mind's silent struggle. We analyze every decision, replay conversations, and plan for every possible outcome, only to find ourselves exhausted and no closer to peace. Yet, over 2,000 years ago, Taoist philosophy provided a simple antidote: flow with life instead of fighting it. Lao Tzu wrote in the Tao Te Ching, do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? Can you remain unmoving till the right action arises by itself? This wisdom teaches us that clarity doesn't come from forcing solutions, but from allowing the mind to settle. Taoism shows us how to embrace Wu Wei, effortless action, yin and yang, balance, and simplicity to free ourselves from the trap of overthinking. 1. The paradox of overthinking. The more you think, the less you know. The Tao teaches that the mind, like water, becomes clear only when it is still. Yet, in moments of uncertainty, we often try to think our way to an answer, only to create more confusion. Taoist parable, the man who tried too hard. A man once came to a Taoist master, frustrated by his inability to find clarity in life. I keep thinking, analyzing, and questioning, yet I'm always stuck, he said. The master handed him a cup of tea and said, stir this vigorously and look at your reflection. The man stirred, but the surface remained chaotic. Now let it sit, the master instructed. As the water settled, the man saw his face clearly. This is your mind, the master said. The more you stir it, the cloudier it becomes. Let it settle, and the answer will reveal itself. How this applies to daily life. When faced with a problem, step away and allow space for insight to emerge. Instead of overanalyzing conversations, trust that what needed to be said was said. If an answer isn't coming, let it rest. Often, the best solutions arise naturally. 2. The wisdom of Wu Wei. Stop forcing, start flowing. Wu Wei, or effortless action, teaches us that forcing things often creates resistance. Instead of trying to control everything, the Tao suggests we align with the natural rhythm of life. Lao Tzu advises, when nothing is done, nothing is left undone. This doesn't mean doing nothing. It means acting in harmony with the moment, without unnecessary struggle. Example, the river versus the rock. A river doesn't argue with a rock in its path. It simply flows around it. Over time, the water shapes the rock, not through force, but through persistence. Overthinking is like trying to push the river upstream. It exhausts us without getting us anywhere. When we surrender to Wu Wei, we stop resisting life and start moving with it. How to apply Wu Wei to overthinking. In work, instead of overplanning, take the first small step and adapt as you go. In relationships, stop obsessing over what others think, flow with authentic interactions. In decision making, choose the path that feels natural, not the one you're forcing. 3. The balance of yin and yang, letting go of mental struggle. Yin and yang represent the dual nature of existence, light and dark, action and rest, thinking and being. Overthinking happens when we lean too much into yang, active mental energy, and neglect yin, quiet intuition. Lao Tzu reminds us, a good traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent on arriving. This suggests that life unfolds best when we allow both planning and spontaneity, action and rest, logic and intuition to work together. Example, the archer who tried too hard. A skilled archer was flawless in practice but failed in competition. When asked why, the archer admitted, "In practice, I trust my training. In competition, I tried too hard to win. The harder he tried, the more his hands trembled. But when he let go of the outcome, his arrows flew true." How to balance yin and yang in thinking. Schedule time for thinking, then stop. Set a limit on how long you'll analyze a decision. Balance logic with intuition. Sometimes the best answers come from a gut feeling. Allow for pauses. Give your mind space to process without constant mental effort. F4. Simplicity. The end of overthinking is the beginning of peace. The Tao teaches that simplicity is the key to clarity. Often, we overthink because we're trying to account for every possibility, every opinion, and every scenario. But the more we simplify, the more we see what truly matters. Lao Tzu says, "I have just 3 things to teach: simplicity, patience, and compassion. These 3 are your greatest treasures." Example, the farmer who accepted life as it came. A farmer's horse ran away, and his neighbor said, "What bad luck?" He simply replied, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returned with wild horses. The neighbor said, "What great fortune!" He replied, "Maybe." His son tried to ride one of the new horses and broke his leg. "What terrible luck," they said. "Maybe," he replied. Soon after, soldiers came to recruit young men for war, but his injured son was spared. The farmer simply accepted life as it came, without overthinking or judgment. How to simplify your mind. Reduce mental clutter. Focus on what matters, not everything at once. Detach from outcomes. Accept that life will unfold as it will. Practice maybe thinking. Most things are neither good nor bad, they just are. Taoist wisdom teaches us that thinking is useful, but overthinking is unnecessary struggle. By embracing flow, balance, and simplicity, we free our minds from endless